Hey guys! So I'm obviously not in class today, and I am missing you guys. I hope you all had a great spring break and that you're kind of raring to go. Um, I know this is kind of weird that I'm like doing this over video, but I was just really bummed that I couldn't be with you today to start off Interpreter Maladies because this is a really special text to me, and I'm really excited that we are going to be studying this book together. This is going to be our last major text together. So I wanted to just jump in with a few comments about it and kind of get class going today. So first of all, thank you to Miss Kester, wherever she is in the room. Thank you so much for hosting my team. And guys, I hope you all have a copy of this book because you're going to need it today, and you're going to need it every day after this in class. So please make sure you have your own copy and that you're ready to mark it up. Okay, if you don't have one today, you can read it online. I've posted a link to the online text in our course calendar, but you need to have your own book by Thursday. And I want you annotating, as always, what we are reading. Okay, a couple thoughts about this book to kind of get us going. Interpreter of Maladies won the Pulitzer Prize. It was published in 1999. Jupa Lahiri is a really acclaimed, pretty modern novelist who writes a lot about the culture conflict between, specifically what happens when the Indian culture that she has kind of grown up with, that's part of her heritage, clashes with American culture. But I think in terms of these short stories, and there are 9 short stories, each short story is kind of talking about different moments of transition, which is why I think this book is so powerful, and which is why we're reading this in conjunction with Things Fall Apart. We haven't really had a chance to kind of debrief the end of Things Fall Apart. We haven't had a chance to talk about it all. I am enjoying your in-class essays, and I will have those for you on Thursday to return. But I think so much of what makes Things Fall Apart really powerful is this idea that there's so many moments when Okonkwo is faced with decisions that he's going to have to make. How is he going to assimilate? Change is inevitable in his life, and he is having to make physical changes in terms of where he's living and what his home life looks like. And then he's having to adjust to changes that are happening in his culture and in his village and in his world. And how Okonkwo tries to reconcile who he is and what's important to him and how the person that he wants to stay with the inevitable reality that he's going to have to also change is, I think, a question that is really important for us all to consider. And it's something that you guys are going to need to consider for your own lives too. Obviously, seniors, you guys are about to go off to college or whatever experiences are going to follow you in collegiate. And you're going to have to kind of figure out, like, what stays and what goes. What's really important to you that's going to be forever important to you, and what are going to be those parts of you and those perspectives that are going to need to change, that perhaps should change, that you want to change. How are they going to change? How is your environment? How are the people around you going to help you figure out that change? It's big. And juniors, like you guys are going to be experiencing that too. You may have already experienced it. I don't want to undermine kind of the experiences that you guys have already had, but I just think that we all have these moments in our lives when we kind of realize that there's a decision that's in front of us, and we need to somehow make a choice that allows us to continue to grow into the people that we want to become. And I think sometimes that means holding on to who you know you are, and I think sometimes it means letting go. This text deals with all of those questions in such really powerful, profound stories. So 9 different stories. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to walk you through each of the stories, and then I would like for you to email me 2 stories that most interest you, and I am probably currently on a plane right now to Philadelphia for these college tours that I'm going on today and tomorrow, but I am hoping that I'm going to have a chance tonight to sit down, go through your emails, and then assign stories. So I will talk about that. But what I want to kind of say right now is that I'm going to just quickly run through these 9 stories. I want you to get out your books. It's like, if your books are not already out, get them out right now. And I want to describe to you what each of these stories are. And then what I want you to do is I want you to open up your computers, and I want you to email me, and I want you to tell me the top 2 or 3 stories that you're interested in, and then I will assign groups. Okay? Okay. So let's start with a temporary matter. So a temporary matter is the story that I'm going to ask you to read in class today. And I want you to read this on your own silently. It's going to be a reading day after we're done with this video. And a temporary matter is going to be the story that we're going to discuss in class on Thursday. So you need to have that story read. I would encourage you to finish reading it in class today. A temporary matter is a really powerful story of a marriage. What happens to a couple, honestly, after they've lost a child, and literally their electricity goes out, and they have this week of dinners by candlelight, in which every dinner they are starting to reveal kind of deeper and deeper secrets that they hadn't yet shared with each other. And it does build, right? And I think they're getting real and getting honest with each other. So what happens when there is kind of that clash between 2 people who used to think they kind of knew each other and now are realizing some new things? Second one, when Mr. Pirzada came to dine. This is personally one of my favorites. I love this story. This is a story about a man who is studying in the United States. He is working on getting his master's degree. He's from either India or Pakistan. I cannot remember off the top of my head. But his wife and his daughters are in either India or Pakistan while there's a civil war going on. And it talks about how this man comes over to the narrator's house for dinner every night and is trying so hard to understand what is happening in his homeland, all the while realizing that A, he's so far from home, and B, what he is hearing on the news and what he is trying to kind of understand is so far from what he knows is actually happening. And how does he deal with that? How does he reconcile being so far from his home, so far from his family, and so far from being able to do anything to help? Interpreter Maladies obviously is the title story, and Shilpa Lahiri chose this one to be the title story pretty intentionally. So you guys probably know that a malady is an ailment, something that has gone wrong. Mal meaning like the root of the word mal meaning bad, and a malady is something that afflicts you in a negative way. The interpreter Maladies is the narrator, and his main job is to be an interpreter in a medical office. But on the side, he's also this tour guide. And the story is what happens when he is taking this family on this tour, on this touristy kind of excursion, and trying to kind of diagnose what is happening with the family. And in a way, kind of also diagnosing himself. A Real Durwan is the story, tragic story of what happens when a community doesn't necessarily value one of its members. A Durwan is a guard or a protector of a community. So someone who literally is like standing at the guardhouse or at the gate of a community and monitoring who's coming in and making sure that everyone is safe. And this woman provides that function in this story. And then in a moment of real humanity, things fall apart, and kind of how the community treats her is the focus of the story, right? So a conflict of class, a conflict of gender, a conflict of age, and a conflict of title and role in society. Okay, Sexy, obviously, it's an intriguing title. It is the story of an affair, an American woman having an affair with an Indian man, and what she learns and what she realizes about herself over the course of that affair. Mrs. Sen's is a story of a boy named Elliot who goes and hangs out at Mrs. Sen's house. She's the wife of a professor, and he goes there after school. She's kind of like his after school babysitter or nanny. And it's the story of what he realizes about her and kind of what happens in her life as they share these afternoons together. What does he learn from her? What does she learn from him? And like most of Jhumpa Lahiri's stories, the ending has a real kind of impactful moment, and how does that impact them? So she's like the queen of these stories. Like, so much happens in these stories. There are lots of layers in these stories. There are lots of details in these stories. I want you to pay attention to all the details. Like, she's a very intentional writer. I don't think she's like a super symbolic writer, but she's definitely very intentional about the details that she includes, right? Everything has a purpose. It's super readable. I don't think you guys are going to have any trouble kind of just literally reading the stories. So the say level should be fine. But these are stories where you're reading, and then you get to the end and you're like, whew, I want to go back and I want to try to like see it all again, right? Put it all together again. It's a puzzle. Okay. This Blessed House is the story of a couple who moves into a new home, and this new home has all of these kind of Christian relics in them, and they are not Christian, and they are trying to kind of figure out like what to do with all of these religious images in their home. And they're a newly married couple, and they each have different reactions to that. So this one has definitely religion is a factor in the story, but again, kind of that conflict clash of like, how are different people dealing with different circumstances in different ways. Okay, the treatment of Bibi Haldar is the story of this woman who is sick and no one knows how to help her, how to cure her. And what she wants to be the cure isn't what other people want to be the cure. And there's a lot of frustration there as to like, how do we treat someone who is sick, for whom there isn't any kind of obvious or clear cure, but who is very legitimately a human being and deserves to be treated as such. But people are afraid of what they don't know. And then the third and final continent is the story of a man who moves first from India and then to London and then finally to the United States. So the United States is his third and final continent. And this is the story of he moves in with this like really elderly woman, and that's the first person that he knows in America, and kind of what he learns about himself and what he learns about her and what he learns about America, like through that relationship. And then how does he kind of like carry her with him as he transitions into this new place? So again, Interpreter Maladies, like on the surface, is the story, 9 different stories of people who are transitioning into America. But there are many other transitions. It's just like Things Fall Apart. Like it's not just the story of colonialism, Things Fall Apart. It's also the story of family and masculinity and marriage and parenting and religion and government, and what happens when all of these kind of differing structures overlap, or are exposed to different people at different times, and like, how do you figure out kind of what is the right thing for you? Again, I love this book, and I hope that you do too, and I hope that you enjoy reading it. Here's the plan. I need you to all read A Temporary Matter right now in class, and I would like for you to do it quietly. I want you to annotate it. If you do not have a copy of this book yourself today, then I want you to print out a copy of it from online, and I want you to annotate that one. Okay? I need everyone to bring their annotated copy on Thursday. And then I want you to email me right now before you start reading. I want you to email me kind of your top 2 or 3 stories of what I just described, the ones that you're interested in teaching. The teaching assignment is going to be similar to Siddhartha, although we've kind of ramped it up a notch.